I am thrilled to partner with Ancient and Brave. I am all about creating space for well-being in my day-to-day. And with Ancient and Brave, you can find your own ritual with their sustainably sourced collagen, blends and supplements, whatever your well-being goals. You can add a scoop of collagen or a dash of MCT oil to your morning coffee for the ultimate habit stack. What's more, Ancient and Brave are proud members of 1% for the Planet, meaning 1% of all their sales goes directly to environmental causes. So by adding true collagen to your wellness routine, you can take care of yourself and the planet too. For more details, visit ancientandbrave.earth/planet and discover how your choices can make a difference. Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I'm your host, Caroline Marshall, and today we are welcoming Lea Turner. Lea Turner is an entrepreneur who transformed her life as a single mum through becoming a successful business owner. In 2019, she was working long hours typing medical reports while caring for her young son, barely making ends meet. Seeking a change, she began posting on LinkedIn, leveraging her humour and authenticity to connect with others. This approach quickly gained traction, leading to a substantial following, which currently stands at almost 200,000 followers and a fast growth LinkedIn training business. Over 5 years, Lea built a six-figure income through her LinkedIn training, digital courses, and in-person workshops. In December 2024, she decided to close the doors on her LinkedIn training to focus on new ventures. Lea is now running the Holt, an online membership community launched in June 2022. The Holt offers expert masterclasses and community and networking for solopreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners, fostering a supportive and inclusive environment. Lea, I'm so excited to have you today. Thank you so much.
So lovely to be here, and it's so funny listening back to like that intro and you go, oh, that was me.
I know.
And I think hear it back.
It's 5 years. So I'm the same with my business. 5 years since my virtual assistant agency launched, and it is like a big milestone looking back on 5 years. I don't know whether it's COVID as well. Like we are reaching 5 years since the first lockdown. Do you think it's just a bit mad looking back on the last 5 years?
I think remembering back to the COVID year-ish, how did we do it? How did we get through that? Thinking about how, like, in generations to come, they're going to be learning about that in history books, and we're going to be painted like these absolute survivors that made it through. When actually, I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't like, for us, there's parts of it that were really, really tough, but we were safe, and there's worse that happens in the world. But yeah, it's very weird. I feel like that. It doesn't even feel like a real year.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of hindsight coming in, saying we were safe and all of that. I think if we go back, it's like we didn't know. And it was kind of a bit dystopian, wasn't it? Like I remember sitting with my husband, pregnant with my second, with all these, the summer kind of opened up and we went out for dinner and there was all these plastic partitions. And he was like, what if this is the world forever? And I was like, what? And we had a whole host of other lockdowns since then. I think it's a little bit of hindsight of remembering that it was at the time.
Yeah, I remember being really frightened because I wouldn't have been able to do my work with my son the age he was, because he was 4.
I was going to say, how old was he?
We just got back from a holiday and we were on the last flight out of Bangkok before Bangkok locked down. I was a bit gutted because I was like, oh, we could have spent 3 months in Thailand. That would have been much better to be locked down there.
Why did you get on the
plane? We didn't know. It wasn't until we got back that we heard the news and we realised how serious it was, because we were in Thailand for 4 weeks. I didn't have a TV. I wasn't watching the news. I didn't know anything about what was going on. So it was when we got back and everyone was talking about it, it was like, all right, like this is a thing. And within a month, like the country shut down as well. And I remember being like genuinely scared. I heard about the schools closing, and I knew that would mean that my son was going to be at home all the time, because he was like in day nursery at the time. He was about to go into year 1, and I was thinking, oh my God, how am I going to work? Because my work meant spending long hours focused, and it was very hard to do with a noisy 4-year-old running around. Like I wouldn't have, and that meant I wouldn't pay the bills, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I actually had a full-on anxiety attack, sat on the floor in my kitchen, just like, what the heck? and I shoved my son into the car at about 9 p.m. at night with my dog and all of our stuff, or as much of my stuff as I could get. And we drove all the way down to my mum in Cornwall because I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to work is if I've got help with childcare and I don't
Yeah.
have anywhere else I can go. So I drove through the night in a total panic all the way down to Cornwall. God knows how many times I went the wrong way or there was a closed road. It took me about 9 hours. And I spent the week there just trying to like get my head back on and sort of ground myself and go, okay, how are we going to fix this? Come up with a bit of a plan. Because I was
Have
just,
another adult around,
I was
basically,
really
as well.
frightened about what it meant. And she lives really rurally as well. So it's like, well, we'll be nice and safe there. We won't be exposed to anything. We're right out in the moors. So yeah. In hindsight, somewhat dramatic. Now I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, maybe I overreacted a bit, but we didn't know at the time, did we?
You're a single parent with a 4-year-old who had to
Yeah,
work, essentially. You
yeah,
don't know. And I feel the same about me. Like, I suddenly couldn't go to work. And I wasn't a single parent. My husband could work. But for me, financial security, I kind of had a bit of a story about failing in that first year. And it was just a bit like, is that it then? Am I not going to work? Is this life kind of thing?
mm,
Because you got to look after your kids. And it is, I don't think it's in dramatic, for you it feels dramatic now. Maybe you wouldn't respond in the same way now, but you don't know because we've never
yeah.
gone through something like that, had you?
Yeah, I think the media really hyped it up so much as well, and you were
Mm.
sort of, it was quite a like mass hysteria kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Like we
Oh yeah,
didn't
like there's no
know.
toilet roll, remember?
Yeah, I know coming home and taking a photo of my son holding toilet roll and being like, we only bought one pack. We're not psychos.
I think with schools closing, it was so many like job loss, things like that. It was, and it's just amazing. But what is amazing though is women like you, where you came out with a whole different career. I think that's
Yeah.
what the amazing things to look at. So before we go into that, tell us a bit about your background. Like, did you always think, oh, I'm going to be a business owner? What did teenage Leah, think she was going to be?
God, no. I had a pretty tough time in my teen years because I lost my dad when I was 10. He was only
Wow.
41 and he'd had
Oh my
cancer for a
goodness.
few years and then he passed when I was just before I started secondary school. So I had quite a lot of crap going on in my head throughout my teenage years. And I was always really good at school. Like I was always very capable. I didn't
Mm.
struggle with any of the subjects. Everything came fairly easy to me, but I just lost interest in it completely as a teenager, which I now know was undiagnosed ADHD. But at the time, I was being treated for depression and
Oh,
anxiety and
really?
insomnia. Yeah, yeah. Now I know it was ADHD. Would have been nice to have known it back then. Um,
Yeah.
but that really made me struggle and I went off the rails. I wasn't interested in being at school. I barely went in my last GCSE year. Somehow managed to scrape through and get pretty decent GCSEs. But I was just in like a regular high school where the kind of mindset was, or what they sort of taught you about was, you do your exams, you've got to do really good in your exams, then you can go to college. And when you do really good at college, you can go to university and then you're going to get a job and you'll work for somebody else until you retire and then you die. And that was just like the path that they
And you
kind of,
should know what you want to do while you're at school, shouldn't you?
yeah.
That like
I
that's the
think
thing as well.
all I even considered doing was like being an English teacher. I think I was quite like, I like to read and I like literature and I'm interested in like English and creative writing, so maybe I'll be like a teacher. But I never had any high aspirations because no one in my family owned a business. Or no, my grandparents owned a post office, so like they had a kind of a business. No one was like an entrepreneur. No one was like just started something themselves from scratch. I think it didn't even register on my radar whatsoever until I was in my mid 20s working for two guys who had started the business I was working in when they were 27. And I was like, like they did it and they were like my age. Maybe I could do it. But it never really entered my head to have a business of my own full time. I sort of started typing to make a little bit of extra travel money. And it was only when it
Yeah.
started going really well to the point it was matching my full-time salary that I was like, right, I'm gonna have to switch. I can't do both because I was working two full-time jobs for the whole of 2012 and I was
Wow.
dead. I was so exhausted working literally 40 hours in one job and 40 to 50 hours in the other and traveling to and from work every day. I was like, I'm gonna keel over. Like I can't keep this up. So my hand was kind of forced. So yeah, it wasn't quite intentional.
And I just say, I love the fact you touched on you're working for two young guys. I've had such a similar story, like working for two young guys who've done it, and you've been like, what makes them special? Why can't I do it? And it is interesting, a little thing, because I do think, especially our generation, we just weren't as encouraged maybe in entrepreneurship as women.
I don't even know if it was just as women personally, because I don't think anyone, I know very few people still from my high school years, but I don't think many of them went and started their own business, or maybe they did, but it was like later on.
Yeah,
I just think it was that narrative that the safe thing to do is get a job. And when you're surrounded by people that have jobs, and parents and teachers and all the people around you, they just work for somebody else. I don't think I even knew the word entrepreneur, and I never considered the possibility that I was a business owner. And I think part of that was because I was just told, like, oh, you're smart enough to be a lawyer, you're smart enough to do this, you could do this, but you're wasting it because you're not applying yourself. And ADHD, now I know I wasn't applying myself. I could have done a lot more, and I probably could have done well at university, but I didn't want to. And I didn't want to be bossed around by other people. I hated that in the job. Like, my bosses would tell you I was a nightmare. I was the one that was calling the shots. They loved it because they needed someone to sort of take charge of the office, but I'd never really enjoyed being restricted, like the times that I was working, the jobs that I was doing. I'm a bit of a free spirit. I like to make my own rules, and I never enjoyed being employed. And I just don't think anyone ever said to me, well, actually, based on the type of person you are, maybe you'd be better to start your own business because you've got that drive and initiative in you. But I guess no one recognised it because I didn't have any business owners around me to spot it.
it's so true. That's
Yeah.
so important. And you mentioned your ADHD, and do you think because it was after your dad dying, such a young age, did you think it really got triggered then? Because you said you were quite,
No, I mean,
no?
ADHD is something that you just have. So
Yeah.
I've been diagnosed with ADHD, but during my diagnosis, they also pointed to a high likelihood of autism as well, which I've never
Oh,
pursued the diagnosis from, but I've just kind of accepted that that's it. But that's something I'm born with. But it definitely was overlooked. It was overlooked because it's been massively underdiagnosed in women anyway, but it manifested in ways that didn't throw up red flags as a
yeah.
kid, because my obsession was reading. So I would read
Ah,
all night, every night. I'd be under the duvet with a torch, reading hundreds and hundreds of books a year. And I was just a good studious girl. I wasn't
yeah.
hyper
Sitting still as
focusing.
well, because you sit still when you read. So that, whereas traditional male traits of ADHD are the activeness, isn't it?
Yeah, see, I'm not physically
Mm,
hyperactive, like I talk with my hands, but I'm not like a physically hyperactive person. I'm a mentally hyperactive person. And I think that's one of the key differences that means it's massively overlooked in people
mm,
is I'm a very talkative person. I'm terrible at interrupting people when they speak because I get excited and I know that the thought's going to disappear, and then I realise that I'm being rude and I get rejection sensitivity, and I'm like, oh God, they're going to hate me because I interrupted. And it's a constant. I think in my teenage years, it definitely became more problematic in my life because I was engaging in risky behaviours. I was drinking, I was smoking, I was taking drugs, I was out overnight for days at a time. Mum didn't know where I was. I was just very rebellious, and I'm lucky that I didn't ever get into any, or I didn't get caught by the police.
appears not
I
to
was
get caught,
definitely,
right?
yeah, I was definitely off the rails. And I feel sorry for my mum now, and I've said sorry so many times because I'm like, God, now I know what it's like to be a parent. I
Mm,
can't imagine how worried you must have been, because I was unreachable. I was so
mm.
unhappy and I was so wayward and there was nothing she could have done to help me at that point. I just had to figure it out and find my own way. So yeah, the ADHD definitely, it became a real problem in my teens.
How do
Um,
you think you found yourself again? Because you said you're unreachable. How do you think you managed to kind of ground yourself to?
I had some very, very low points where I wasn't sure how I was going to go on. And then something kind of snapped in my head and I went, this is not what my dad would have wanted for me. This is not the person that would make him proud. And I owe it to him to be happy and live a good life because he's not here. And I think it just sort of flicked in my head and I went, I can't do this anymore. And I'd gone back to college for a few months and hated it and left. And I got a job and I got a boyfriend who was the total opposite of everything I'd been dating before. He was boring. And I like he's the kindest
You needed
guy.
it,
Like
maybe.
he's such a sweet man, but he was boring. He had no ambition. And you know, that stands over 20 years on. He's still working the same job he was when I met him. And he's still living in the same place he lived when I met him. We were so on different paths. And I needed that. And he didn't drink and he was a money saver. And so I became a bit of a recluse in terms of like socializing and left my sort of wild social life behind. And I was with him for like 4.5 years. And we were only really ever friends that we were so I was only 16, 17. I moved out of my home with my mum and my sister because that was somewhat of a war zone at that point because me and my sister were both teenage and we were clashing badly. So I just completely changed my situation. Got a boring job in a cafe that kept me really busy. I got a boring boyfriend, stopped spending time with the friends that were bad influences. I don't know, I might have been the bad influence, but the ones that encouraged the waywardness. And I, you know, just became a lot more like of a homebody and nurtured more wholesome friendships. And I did go back to the wildness in my 20s, throughout my 20s, but I needed that reset time to grow up, get some independence. And, you know, ever since then, I've never gone back to that really dark place. I've had like difficult periods, but I've never gone back to that dark place. And, you know, that was it. It was me. I had to the medication that the antidepressants weren't working because it wasn't depression, it was ADHD. So yeah, it was me basically just saying I refuse to live like this and turning it around, making tough choices.
Well done. And it sounds like, yeah, neither of those people were you, but you kind of had to go through the extreme phases to find yourself
Yeah.
between that, the balanced one, the one where you can be boring, you can be super like fun and do risky things like, entrepreneurship in some people's mind is that.
And that's, you know, as a person with ADHD, risk taking is part of that
Mm.
because you get the high, you get the
Yeah.
dopamine fix when you take
Yeah.
risks, especially when it pays off. And we're constantly chasing that. So I'm a pretty comfortable person with risk. Even if something's scary, I'm like, yeah, sod it, let's see what happens.
Close my eyes and just go.
Yeah. And I back myself to figure it out if it goes wrong. And I think that's
Mm.
the difference. I've had so many times in my life where things have gone like wrong and I've gone, crap, I'm gonna have to sort this out. And I always have. So I don't sort of fear like falling over and failing at something because I know that I'll figure it out. Statistically speaking, I always have. So the chances are I'll be all right next time.
Yeah, it's like you failed before, you will survive the next thing that
Yeah.
is that, and it's inevitable, isn't
Mm.
it? I think embracing that. And just back to your transcription business, how did you start that then? Like, what made you choose that as the thing to pay for your holidays at first until
Um,
you went into it?
It was all I was good at. Like, all I knew that I was good at was spelling and typing. I'd spent my lonely insomnia teenage years in chat rooms because I couldn't sleep. So I would go in chat rooms and talk to people in other countries where they were still awake. And it meant I typed really fast. And I was going to lots of gigs in my early 20s. And I met a guy called Ian, who was a photographer and an interviewer for like rock bands. And he would go and record these interviews after the show, and then he'd have to type them up. And he had this massive backlog. And I was like, well, I'll type them up if you give me more gig tickets and take me backstage. So we did like a skill swap, and I used to type up the interviews with the
Amazing.
bands, and I didn't have like the typing pedal because normally as a transcriber you have like a pedal that you stop
Mm.
and start the transcription with the audio with your feet, so you don't have to take your hands off the keyboard. But I didn't know that they existed at that point, so I was literally just like typing as fast as he was talking, listening to them on these tapes. But it got me free gig tickets, and I was broke, so I was happy about that. And I was doing a little bit of a lot of typing in my job working for building surveyors, and I'd done a 3-month temping stint working just typing up reports for building surveyors. So when I was working for building consultants full time as an office manager, I was like, I've done loads of audio typing. I'm doing audio typing in this job. I know how the pedals work now. Surely there's other people that need this service, and I'm really good at it. Like I knew I was really, really good and fast at it. So I was on a beach in Thailand, and I was there on my own for a month, and I had a cigarette in one hand. I don't smoke anymore, but I had a cigarette in one hand and a strawberry daiquiri in the other, and I was on the beach at about 5 o'clock in the morning watching the sun come up, and I was like, I love this. I need to do this more. I need to travel more. This has set my soul on fire. And I needed more money. So the
Wow.
only thing that I knew I was good at and was typing. And I thought, well, I'll have a look. If this is a service, I Googled it and saw some people do it. So I shoved an ad on Gumtree, and 3 days later, I had my first client.
Amazing. Gumtree. I love that story. And so
Yeah.
you were a business owner when you became a mum then?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started that business when I was 26. I took it full time when I was 27, and I had my son when I was 30.
Oh my goodness. So, and what did you feel like maternity leave would look like at that point of
I knew I
a
wouldn't have.
business?
Yeah, I knew I wouldn't
Yeah.
get any maternity leave. I worked for doctors predominantly, typing medical reports for like car accidents and accident at work claims, and
So you
also
went from bands to the medical world.
hands to the medical world. And I still was doing a lot of work for building consultants and market researchers. So, when they do focus groups and they'll get a group of people in a room to talk about motorway service stations or jewelry or clothing or banking. And it was some of the most dull subjects ever. And I'd have to type all of the things that everyone said in the room, and then that would go back, because this was before Otter AI and all of the AI services. Like, it was a
The
person
tools
that
you
had to
got
do this.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so destroyingly boring. Like, honestly, trying to concentrate. Now I understand why
Oh,
I
I've
struggle
done
so
it.
much.
I've done it, and
Yeah,
I hate it because I'm
it's
like, I'd much rather
awful.
even just be live in a room in a meeting and taking notes because at least there's people there. But listening to people, it is because you can't listen to music. It's not like
Yeah.
other boring work where you can listen to the
And
radio.
most of the time, it's not even interesting things. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I've done some copy typing work for like novelists where they'd like handwritten manuscripts and they needed it typed up, or they've been featured in newspaper articles. And I did some really interesting ones, but the audio stuff was really interesting. Like, every now and then you'd get an interesting interview with like a celebrity or something, but it was few and far between. So yeah, that's why I started the business. And then I,
Mm.
I I found out I was pregnant, and that was in January 2015. I found out I was pregnant. I knew I was just going to have to do as much extra work throughout my pregnancy as possible so that I could save up enough to have a couple of weeks off and also be able to pay for all the things my baby would need, because I was literally only making enough money to pay my bills. So I was like, right, I'm going to have to really work up and get some savings. I knew I'd get a bit of help from the government once my baby arrived as well. So it's like, okay, it'll be a little bit of help, but it won't be enough. So I worked my absolute butt off during my pregnancy.
Wow.
I remember hiding my bump. I went to London to meet a client, which was very rare. I never did it, but he had 20 A4 folders, like the big box folders, and they were full of handwritten aphorisms, these like one-liners, and he'd
Mm.
been writing them for 25 years, and he wanted to turn it into a book. So I had thousands of pages of these things, and I was like, I'm not going to tell him I'm pregnant because he won't let me carry the
Take
folders,
them.
or he'll think that I'm not going to be committed. So I hid my baby bump,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I showed really early when I was pregnant as well. I was a bit worried I was having twins at first because I was like out of my genes at 12 weeks. So it was really hot, and I think it was like March, April, and it was really, really hot, and I wore this big baggy jumper, and I went on a train down to London from the Midlands where I was living at the time, and he let me take this huge bag of folders away with me, and I had to drag them to a taxi and drag them to the train and try and not, like, I didn't want him to know that I was pregnant, so I didn't tell him until my baby was nearly there. And I sat, and on top of all the other work I was doing, every night I would sit on my sofa and type these things for hours and hours, and it made me an extra, I think, 2.5 or 3 grand that paid for all the baby stuff.
Oh, wow.
Second
Amazing.
hand, obviously, because you can't get a full load of baby stuff for 3 grand. But yeah, that was yeah. I can't believe I actually did that. It's no wonder he was a breech baby, because I spent so much time sat on
Was
my
he?
bum. Yeah, I had a C-section because he was like footling breech, so he was fully the
Oh,
wrong way. Yeah.
oh gosh. But it is, you're the epitome of like, ask a mum and she'll get on with it, you'll make it work. You
Yeah.
had to,
Yeah.
and wow, that is amazing. And so you carried on throughout that, and COVID, you were still typing. I say it was like, I think the VA world like loves you a lot in this sense because there's so much, your background of admin, office management that you've talked about is so similar. And I think there are so many VAs that love to pivot. So I look like, how on earth did you go from this to a LinkedIn specialist?
So when my son was he just turned 5, And because he's a September baby, he wasn't going to start school because they start school like the first September after they're 4. But the first September after my son was 4, he was nearly 5. So
Yeah.
when
It's
he,
a huge difference because my
yeah,
first was an August baby, and it was like I was just packing him off to school quite
it's
quickly.
crazy, isn't it? But so I had him at home for like an extra year. I knew when he turned 4 in the September 2019, I was like, right, by this time next year, I need to have like a team on board and be making a little bit of extra money because I can't keep going like this. And I don't want to be working till 8 o'clock in the evenings when he's at home because I won't see him during the day because he's going to be at school all the time. And it's not like nursery where we get a couple of really good days together a week and then I work in the evenings on those days. He was going to be gone every day. So it's like I want to be able to be available to him in the evenings, you know, pick him up from school and actually be able to focus on him and enjoy being with him. So I went onto LinkedIn because you'd had to stop paying for Gumtree. So I was like, that's not an option. Like, because I hadn't really had to go looking for clients. I'd had a lot of word of mouth referrals until that point. So I was like, all right, well, where am I going to find more building consultants? Because that was the easy work for me. I could fly through that and make loads of money doing it because it was really super quick. So I was like, right, where am I going to find these people? So I sent a few emails off to people that like I'd Googled. And then I got one of those emails that said someone's looked at your profile on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, LinkedIn, what's that? I never really thought about that. Like I had a profile from 2012, like everybody did, but
Yeah.
I'd never really thought about it.
We all had them as like as a
Yeah.
CV, wasn't it?
What did you think?
Basically.
Go and have a look. Oh no, forget about it. That's the same thing I did with TikTok, basically. And so that was September 2019. And so I started looking at LinkedIn and hated it and was like, what the hell, this is not for me. And I certainly don't look like anybody on there. And I didn't even have a profile photo. I was terrified of showing my face because my whole life I've been told I'd never get a corporate job because I don't look like a corporate person. They won't accept you with all those tattoos and all of that. So I was scared to show my face. And then I think I posted a few times and it was just like proper cringy, try hard corporate rubbish. Not me at all. And I hated it and I felt dirty even putting something like that out with my name on it. Like, oh, who am I? I decided like, look, if I'm going to do this, it's going to have to be fun for me. So screw what anybody else thinks. I'm just going to post what I want and say what I want and have fun with it and engage with other people that, you know, seem a little bit less serious all the time. And the more I did, the more content started coming to my feed that was more interesting people that made me feel more welcome and more normal. And very quickly the followers started to come in because I was posting stuff that I guess was a bit different, and there was other people posting more casual stuff, but I guess I was a little bit different. And because I didn't look like people expect people on LinkedIn to look, that certainly made people go, oh, she's different, and they were paying attention.
So when was this? Was it 2020?
This is the sort of late part of 2019.
Wow, so just before COVID.
Just before COVID. So my followers skyrocketed, but not just that, I was getting tons of business. I was getting so much typing business that it went from just me to me plus 5 freelancers really,
Amazing.
really fast.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to focus on the typing work with my son at home, and I also knew that all of my clients couldn't do their medical examinations and they couldn't go and do their building surveys because lockdown. So I was like, I am screwed. My income stream is just gone and my team aren't available because their kids are all at home. And so many people have been asking me for tips on how I was getting so many clients on LinkedIn. I just decided to take a chance, and I felt absolutely audacious for doing it because I'd only been on the platform for 6 months. But I'd achieved in that 6 months stuff that people who'd been on it for years couldn't do.
Wow.
So I just...
Did you even feel it was a thing to make a career out of
Oh
LinkedIn?
no, God no.
Yeah.
I started doing it just as a temporary keep money coming in while COVID lockdown's going on. Like it was just this will do for now. This will keep a little bit of money coming in. But I never went back to typing because I couldn't. It was the LinkedIn training was in so much demand that I just shut the typing business down. I just decided one day, I was like, right, that's it. Because I had a couple of the girls were keeping it going. Just got annoyed with it one day when a client chased something that hadn't been done, and I just went, screw this, and emailed everyone and said effective immediately, it's shut. Sorry.
It's
There's
interesting
someone you can
because
speak to that will do it for you.
you were kind of going in that direction anyway. It shows like you kind of knew working all hours there's an end to that at some point. I think that's really important to know that as business owners and entrepreneurs. You get really excited, right? I can work for myself, I can do this, but you have to rein in the working all the time. And it sounds like you were starting before COVID with your son approaching school. You're starting to get there.
There was definitely an element of I can't sustain this. So because I was doing transcription for long hours, I was having a lot of problems with my hands, the tendons in my fingers. I was getting a lot of pain. I was getting tendinitis and I was getting like shooting pains in my arms. There was other reasons for me to not want to keep typing. I thought I can't earn much, and as it happens, AI basically took over my job, so I'm really glad that I got out when I did, because there's not much of a demand. I would have probably had to go to proofreading, but then ChatGPT can do that, so AI probably would have stolen my job and I got out at the right time.
Yeah, you saw that happening somehow.
Yeah, very serendipitous.
In training start, like, it's that whole thing, the fear sometimes of feeling like you're the expert, and it moved, like I said, really quickly what you achieved. How did you create that mind shift of like, I'm an expert in LinkedIn, I'm going to deliver go all in with this?
I didn't really ever, until I think once it became undeniable to me. Like there comes a point where you're like, okay, like I've got to, like, I can be as humble as you like and I can be modest, but now I just sound stupid because like, look at the facts, look at what people are doing, look at what people are saying that I've worked with. I need to like own this a little bit. It took other people basically beating it into me. Like, I didn't want to put my prices up. I didn't want to accept that I was an expert. I felt really awkward when people were referring to me as that. And I remember during lockdown, I went on Clubhouse quite a lot, and I think that helped me.
Oh, that was a thing. I forgot.
Yeah, and I actually really built my authority on Clubhouse quite
wow.
substantially without really intending to. I went on there to like listen to other business owners, and people would sort of look at my profile on there and then pull me up on the virtual stage to ask me questions about LinkedIn, and I'd be on the stages with like other LinkedIn experts who were going, wow, she actually knows what she's talking about. She's not just some pretty face that's come on and everyone follows her because they like her tattoos. They were like, she actually knows what she's talking about. And they were saying it to me privately, and I was like, oh, okay, these are people that have been doing this for years, and they're actually paying attention to me and saying, you do know, and deferring questions to me as well, like, oh, Leah's the expert on this one, Lea can answer that one better. And I was like,
do you feel you had to work harder for that because of the way you looked? Like, you had to really prove yourself sometimes?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say, if you've got, you know, a blonde, blue-eyed, tattoos from her chin to her toes woman on in any field, she's probably going to have to work harder to get taken seriously as a professional. It's the world we live in, and it's the same goes for, you know, a black woman who's disabled, or a gay man who's, you know, particularly, I don't know, overweight. If you do not fit the sort of the norm, what people expect, you have to take extra steps to get the same respect people that maybe don't have those barriers. And I don't, you know, I accept it. I dye my hair blonde and I've chosen to get the tattoo, so I'm not complaining about it. It's not like I was born that way. It's one of those things, like, you know, you have to have those extra barriers, and I knew that there was definitely a general assumption that I was popular because of how I looked rather than any value that I had to add. And so Clubhouse gave me a way to be seen as an expert without having to be like, show my face.
Yeah, without being seen. It was actually quite a great, it did die its death, but it was quite a good theory behind it. That's amazing that Clubhouse helped you. And aligned with that, has there ever, especially in the early days, because you're probably used to it now, but been a bit of a shock about some of the comments? Like, have you received comments on things so publicly? I always find that crazy about LinkedIn, because it's such a professional platform where employers check you out, that people would say some of the stuff they say there.
Generally, the worst stuff comes in the DMs.
Really?
Yeah. However, very little now. I think I've got a pretty strong reputation for outing people that
have do. You?
Oh yeah.
So have you outed people from your DMs on a post?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had one guy sacked for it. Yeah, his first and only ever message to me, and we weren't connected, was, great tits, Lea, heart, lovely. And so that went in a post on United Utilities, where he worked, or Utility Warehouse, I think it was, that he worked at. They were tagged, and I got a load of people that also worked with him saying, yeah, he was not like this just online. He was like this in person. There's been complaints about him before, and he lost his job. And I got a lot of hate from people going, like in the comments of the post, saying, "You've just ruined his life. He's going to lose his job. How is he going to feed
Mm.
his kids?" I was like, sorry, what? That's not my problem. Like,
Yeah.
that's his responsibility. He doesn't get to sexually harass strangers on the internet
No.
because he needs to feed his kids. If you want to feed your kids, don't take risks and be abusive towards strangers. Like, be a decent human being. But so that wound me up. People were trying to victim blame me. I'm like, I didn't ask him to send me this message, and I shouldn't have to accept that message, because if I accept that message, he's going to send them to other women, and they might not be as confident to stand up for themselves as I am.
Yeah.
And if he's probably doing it in person and making women uncomfortable. So I'm sorry, I'm not on his side on this one. So I was just like, big middle finger up to those people, and was like, not my problem. Don't behave like that.
Like you said, it was the tip of the iceberg, him messaging you.
Yeah, that's not like a one-off behavior.
Mm.
That would be something. Nice men don't just randomly send a message like that to one woman, and it's never happened before. Yeah, I've had stuff like that all the time, and I mean that was tame. I've had all sorts of stuff. But I've had death threats. I had someone who tried to extort money out of me for 18 months and all sorts of stuff. But I don't really get it anymore. And I don't know whether that's because I have like quite a strong community, whether people have realised that even if they don't like me, I'm not a bad person,
Mm.
or they're just too scared because they know I'll turn them into content and ruin their lives.
Sadly, I think it might be that one. Like
Yeah.
it is sadly, it's like you stood up for yourself. And I think that how have you managed the death threats though? Like how do you manage that?
The death threat one did knock me. That freaked me out. But it was during COVID, and it was somebody in the US. So I knew that there was no chance. But he literally sent me videos of a woman in a dark room screaming, and told me it was going to be me. And that he knows I live alone with my son. And he'd posted all over LinkedIn that he was going to kill anybody that was associated with me. I think the guy was having some kind of a mental breakdown, or episode. I don't think this was like somebody that was well. I think he was
No.
very
Mm.
unwell. But when I was literally standing in my bedroom on a Sunday afternoon, and my phone pinged, and it was these messages, and he'd messaged me on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, and was just sending me all the stuff, and I was like, whoa. And he was talking to the camera as well. Like, he filmed himself talking to the camera and saying things to me, and I was like, this is terrifying. Like, having that come into my house, I was just like, oh my
Mm.
god. And I'm very careful about like having my home address public, and I don't have
Yeah.
photos of my home like from the
Mm.
outside anywhere.
Mm.
And I don't want to have anything like that anywhere, because of that, because that
Yeah.
that made me go, which is a good thing really, because it made me take extra precautions, and take my safety and my son seriously. But yeah, I think realistically, when it's just like the regular hate stuff, which again I haven't had for ages, I just laugh at it now, because at the end of the day, what I do online, whether they like it or not, it's paying my bills. It's giving me and my son a lifestyle that we
Yeah.
like. It's so different to what we had before. It's provided safety and security. I'm funding my mum's retirement. I'm able to give back and help charities. I'm able to support hundreds of business owners and help them to support each other to improve their own lives, like I've done with mine. And they continue to help me to improve mine as well. And it's just like, there's no negative intention with anything that I'm doing. There's no nasty intention. I'm not trying to steal
No.
from people or con people or become a multi-millionaire at the expense of other people. Like, I'm doing it for the right reasons, just to be a good mum and provide for my child, and
Yeah.
help as many people as I can while I do that. And I think, hopefully ultimately, that whatever they say to me or try to criticize me, I know that I'm doing it for good reasons, and I am a good person. And so I don't take anything that they say literally. If they want to comment on who I am and how I look, I think, well, you don't actually know me though, do you? Because the people who genuinely know me know I come with good intentions, and I'm a positive person in their life, as in every possible way I can be. So just don't internalize it.
I think that's exactly it. I don't know whether that comes with age or something, but if you know what you're doing is to make your corner of the world better with family, community, business community in your case as well, then you stand by that, and you've been around 5 years now, you're doing it, and that's amazing.
The only hurt in it is if somewhere inside you believe
That's true.
There's an element of truth in what they've said. And
Mm.
if you know absolutely for certain there's no element of truth in what they've said, it can't actually touch you because it's not real. And they don't know you. So, and ultimately, good, happy, positive people don't spend their time saying horrible things to strangers on the
Yeah,
internet. Like,
that's
there's
so
something
true.
missing in their life if that is how they're choosing to spend their days. So I just sort of
That's,
pity them, really. It's
yeah.
tragic.
Thank you for sharing that and going down that. And I think that's inspiring for anyone who's starting to share on socials, as long as you know what you're doing is for your business for the right reasons, and other people,
Yeah.
that's their issue,
Mm,
isn't it?
very much.
And so now I think it makes complete sense, obviously, why you started Holt, with everything from your experience of being a business owner, not looking like the norm, not behaving like the norm online. Is that why you started the Holt then, going in that direction?
I started the Holt because I was working with all these business owners to do LinkedIn training, and it was like, well, I can teach you how to do LinkedIn, but I can't teach you how to build a lead magnet and automate a welcome sequence and write a newsletter and all the other marketing things that you need to do to make your business successful. And I realized how many business owners are out there that are really, really good at the thing that they sell, but all of the other stuff we're crap
So
at.
much.
Because
Yeah.
there's so much we don't know that's even available. It took me forever to realize that I could actually automate sending my invoices. And like, I didn't know about Zapier.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is like wizardry. Like, this is so much fun.
It still blows my mind. It still
I,
feels a bit magic to
it,
me with
it is
Zapier.
fully Harry Potter. Like, it's not. It's absolutely magic to me. And I realised that I've got this huge network of people on LinkedIn and loads of people vying for my audience. They want me on podcasts. They want me to speak in their communities. They want me to do this, that, and the other. They want my audience. They want to be associated with my brand. And I've got all these people that want to learn things that these people who want my audience know. So I was like, well, what if I was the middleman? Because I know as a business owner, especially at the beginning, you know you need to sell more, but you don't know how to sell. And you can't afford to pay someone to do it for you. And you also aren't sure who to trust to buy the course to teach you how to do it. Because that 297 that you might spend on that sales course, it might be terrible, and that's the
Yeah.
only money you have to spend on it. So you're like, oh my god, this is such a gamble. Or you might be going onto YouTube and scrolling for ages trying to find a decent video that isn't some hustle bro shouting at you from his Lamborghini. I'm like, I just want to know how to do these things, right? So I thought, well, if I vet the experts, these are people I know and trust, that I've worked with, that I know are great, and I charge people a small subscription fee to access these experts, that the experts get my network, potentially get future leads, because the person they're teaching people that eventually are going to want to hire someone to do the things that they. So I was like, oh, it all works perfectly in my head. How do I do this? So I didn't know it was going to work, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go, because that's something that I can scale, and I can't keep doing LinkedIn training forever. Like, there's only so far I can go, and there's only so many times I can stand in front of a group of people and repeat myself and not want to punch myself in the face because it's so.
I was going to say, do you feel like you've got bored of it as well? Are you done with it? Yeah.
I enjoyed the one-to-ones more, but the corporate stuff I was just like, so boring. Like, because half of them are there because they don't even want to be there. They
Yeah, that
don't have
it's
to
a
be
course
there.
they've been paid to go on, and they don't
Yeah.
want to build their
Some of them
LinkedIn
were
presence.
unreal. I had some really, really great experiences doing corporate, but then there were other ones that just felt like I was wading through mud trying to get them to actually do anything. Though they'd be super enthusiastic, but then I'd leave and they'd do absolutely nothing because they just went back to their normal life, and management went, we've ticked that marketing box, we've done some training, and I was like,
We've encouraged them to have a profile.
yeah, we've encouraged them to we've given them the training, we've ticked the box, we've spent the marketing budget, happy days, and everyone just goes back and does nothing. And that's not because my training's crap, it's just because that's not a priority for them.
Yeah.
And they just had money to spend, and I didn't get any satisfaction from that. I get satisfaction from seeing people succeed and do well and enjoy it and get benefit from it, not just sit in a room and go, well done, that was great. It just doesn't interest me. So I wanted the personal satisfaction, and Holt it gives me that, because I'm in the community every single day, multiple times a day. I'm in there answering questions, helping people, connecting people to the right people to help, finding great masterclass hosts, creating more resources. We're doing in-person events this year as well. We've started last year with some co-working events and a Christmas party, and we're going to do many more like local events all around the UK. And I just love it. It's the thing that I needed at the beginning of my journey and the thing that I still benefit from now. Being the leader of something like that is like, it feels like a genuine honour to have that many people trust me to create something that they're going to benefit from, and how wonderful they all are. Like, I did some feedback interviews on Wednesday with people who've been in the community between 3 months and 2 years. And the thing that came through, people kept saying and repeat, was how it feels so safe and how amazing the people are. Like, there's no knobheads. That's like our tagline, but there's no knobheads in the community. People are nice and supportive and friendly. They genuinely care and want to see each other win. And that's magic. Like, that genuinely feels like magic, to get that many people with wonderful intentions in one space. It's the whole takes a village to raise a child kind of thing. I didn't have a village to raise a child, but I've damn well got a village to raise my business.
Love that. And that's a credit to you, building that as well. And that, I think that's so true. I hard relate to that. You sometimes feel you're missing that village with your children, and then you go get it in your business because it's out there.
Yeah,
and you've made it.
Yeah.
So
And I struggled with my first business on my own for far too long. And this time I was like, there's all these people that want to help me, and all these people I can help. How great would it be if we all helped each other? And, there's lots of other things that go on in the community, but that one thing, like, it brings me to tears when I hear people talking about how much they've been supported. I'm like, this is unreal. Like, how did we get here? It's so cool that we did, though.
It's amazing. And what I'd love to know, like, listening to your journey from your transcription and typing all hours, things like that. So what does your work life look like now? You've got a team. So how has that helped you? Are you able to spend that time with your son you wanted? How does it look as a small business owner?
Well, we went to Mexico in July, and I was there I think we were there 10 days, and I actually didn't really do any work at all. I think I chucked up a couple of LinkedIn posts and just sort of let them go and didn't bother engaging, and the team just managed everything for me. That was unreal. That's the first time
Well done. That's how it should be.
Yeah. I tend to work between school hours now, so I'll work from like 8:30 to about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Varies on different days with school activities and after school stuff that we do. And sometimes I'll do an hour here and there in the evening, and I don't work at all at weekends. I don't touch my laptop at weekends other than to watch some Netflix, and I still go into the community because I want to be in there, and I don't feel like that's work. The occasional email I'll respond to, but generally I'm working, like I say, 8:30 till 4 o'clock maximum, Monday to Friday. And I would like to, by the end of this year, get down to working 4 days a week. So I actually have a day a week for me, because I don't have that because my son's a footballer. So Saturdays and Sundays are football. And it would be quite nice to have a day where I can, I don't know, go and do some shopping. Or I say, for me, I'll probably end up doing supermarket shopping and walking the dog and things, but one where I'm not sat at a desk.
Yeah, you're not rushing. And I have no doubt you'll do that. How has your team helped you do that?
Oh, they're just amazing. So I've got Danielle, who's one of the community managers in the Holt. We've got Takshi as well. She's a new mum. She's out in India, and so she's had a baby, and she's juggling that with a few hours a week in the Holt. We've got Alex and Laura, who do the tech and the automation. We've got another Alex who does all of the email marketing. We've got Rachel, who does all the website updates. And so these are all freelancers. I don't have employees. I've got Luke Manton, who is my personal PA, so he does like all my lifestyle travel and the LinkedIn side of the business, some of the social media. We've got Amelia, who does all of the social media content for the Holt pages. I'm going to forget someone now. We've got a branding lady, Kaylee, who that's obviously sporadic when we need new things. I've got my podcast producer, so he helps me with that. So I've got like, it's only on an as and when I need them basis, but we've got, it's a fairly extensive team, and every single person that I've hired to work on the Holt has come from the Holt.
Amazing.
I haven't hired somebody outside the community for 2.5 years.
So anyone looking for work, go into the community.
It's the first place to go for everyone. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, Lea, thank you so much. I have no doubt. I love that your goal is to work 4 days soon, and because I just think that's so inspiring. And what people need to hear is like a mother who's gone from the hustle to still, still doing that, but manage to grow their business, get team in, find the right support, and find the hours that work for you in an inspiring way. I like to end this on joy. And like, I find a lot of women lose their joy after motherhood, or you can lose it in business. What's your selfish joy, Lea? So while you said you want that extra day and you'll end up doing shopping, what would be something just for you that's joyful and away from football mum life?
No, it's been such a long time. I can't even say I enjoy going to the hairdressers because I get bored stiff sat there. I don't know. Do you know? It's so long. I guess probably I like a day going for like massages and facials and things like that. Like I'd never do that unless I'm traveling and on holiday somewhere. I don't do that. So I'd probably go and like get a facial, get my Botox topped up, have a makeup done, go out for some nice food, go out for some nice Thai food with some good company. That's social, something social with like friends, maybe some live music. I haven't done that in a very long time, and I'd like to go to a gig again. So yeah, usually it's traveling, but I don't do that on my own really. Dexter's always there with me, so that's my joy, is traveling with him.
That's lovely. I think that's loads of things there, and definitely more things to add when you're down to your 4-day week. So Lea, where can people find you and find out more information about joining the Holt?
Everything is on leaturner.co.uk, so it's Lea without the H, or you can go to the-holt.com, but the first website has the links to all of that anyway. That's like my website. That's got loads of other podcast episodes and media features and articles. And if you want me on your own podcast, like all of that's on there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I love following you on LinkedIn. Keep going. Your story is inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you so much to Ancient and Brave for sponsoring today's episode of the Bump to Business Owner podcast. Try their Find Your Ritual quiz online to find out which of their products will help you achieve your wellness goals. Subscribe, and not only will you get your order regularly delivered to your door, you'll also receive a ritual scoop. As a member of 1% for the Planet, 1% of Ancient and Brave sales go towards helping environmental partners working towards a better future for our planet. For more details, go to ancientandbrave.earth. Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.